Hi everyone, today I'm back to talk more about the SoundPeats H1, what I've learned since my first video about the H1, and a comparison to their predecessor, the SoundPeats TruEngine 3 SE. Am I going to have a Mustang in the background the whole time? No. Am I going to have a video of dogs playing poker? No. Stay tuned as we get right to it. So let's start with what I've learned since the first video. Number one, SoundPeats are stating that there will be an app for the H1. They haven't stated a date, they haven't stated capabilities, but they're working on an app. That's pretty exciting, right? They have also stated that the earbuds won't include ANC, even though the chipset does support ANC. Number three, they've updated their FAQ to include more information on that Qualcomm True Wireless mirroring technology, why they included the CompliFoam ear tips, what a crossover does, and they discussed their 12-month warranty. Now, if you're not familiar with what a crossover basically directs audio frequencies between the two drivers and the buds, with the high frequencies, in this case of the H1, getting routed to the Knowles balanced armature drivers. Now, crossovers are nothing magical. They've been used in speakers for literally decades. That's what they do. This is a two-way speaker, basically. If you're familiar with home audio speakers or even in-ear monitors, you could have 3, 4, 5, even 6 drivers. And there's always a crossover routing the sound to the correct driver tuned by the audio engineers for the sound that they want the earbuds to deliver. So you can check the links in the video description to head on over to the Kickstarter page, the SoundPeats Kickstarter page for the H1 to read more about those things. So for that comparison with the TruEngine 3 SE, let's call up my website, go to the earbud comparison page, add the H1 and the TruEngine 3 SE, and look at the differences. All right, the first big difference that we see is the SoundPeats H1 has wireless charging. Next, battery life is significantly improved. Now, the SoundPeats H1 is claiming 10 and 40, but let's just say that they're still working on that spec, and they're still tweaking the product. I mean, otherwise, wouldn't they be shipping the SoundPeats H1 right now? So sure, maybe I won't receive those 10 hours, but I have basically a prototype. You will receive the real deal and get these 10 hours of playtime and the 40 hours using the case, depending on which mode you're using. aptX, adaptive, aptX, AAC, or SBC, and how loud you listen to them. Your match may vary on how many hours you actually get. Now, as far as comfort goes, let's take a look at the shape of those buds. And you can see why this bud is shaped a different way. You can see the two drivers inside the TruEngine 3 SE causing that hump. And then inside this one, there's only the one driver, and then you got a Knowles balanced armature driver. I'm not even sure if that's it. But clearly, you were able to get the shape of that bud to be more svelte, more streamlined. Basically, what's going to happen is this design is going to allow you to put that a little bit further into your ear. But you can see from that view, that SE3 is not going to go quite as far into your ear as the H1. And that could be a blessing or a curse, depending on, who you are and whether or not you would like that. Now, we're going to skip sound for the time being. Well, let's look at the codecs support. The Qualcomm aptX adaptive feature inside the Qualcomm 3040 chip can adapt to the audio source to better provide great sound. And in the case of the H1, it's also going to give them a little bit better latency, a little quicker in the earbuds. The TruEngine 3 SE also has aptX, so this aptX adaptive is going to be one of those things that it has, but you'll never really know what it's doing. You just know that it's there and you are paying a little bit extra for it. Okay, let's talk about calls and CVC8. Now, I have them both ranked as a 7 on calls. The H1 are a little bit better on call quality than the TruEngine 3 SE, but this is the elephant in the room. Would I use these earbuds on a work call? No, I would not. I would get myself a real mic, like the one I'm using now, and I would use this on any Zoom call or work call that I'm taking. Otherwise, I have to be in a very, very quiet room to use these buds, and I would have to speak extremely loudly, not extremely loudly, but loudly and clearly so the other person could hear me very well. Next, we are going to see that the Bluetooth range on the H1 is better than on the TruEngine 3 SE. This chipset, this Qualcomm 3040 chip, has an interesting feature called mirroring. You can check it out on the SoundPeats H1 Kickstarter page, but basically that's just saying that only one earbud connects to the phone, the other one doesn't. It's going to give you better battery life, and the connection can seamlessly switch between the earbuds should the connection get lost. So you will have better Bluetooth range. I've measured it as better Bluetooth range. Either way, these buds both work pretty well to stay connected to my phone. Next on that list, where's the next difference? Latency. Okay, so we got an extreme difference in latency. The H1 is a faster bud out of the box. No matter what you do, it is just it's less latent. It's faster. The sound between when you see lips moving or some kind of a sound effect happening in a video or in a game, you will hear the sound quicker in the H1 than in the TruEngine 3 SE. If you turn on low latency mode in the H1s, it is significantly faster. And in fact, it's the fastest gaming mode bud that I've tested, period. The 3 SE doesn't even have a low latency mode. So this is a big feature in my mind for the SoundPeats H1. You also see that volume is, they're both loud. 102 decibels is eardrum busting volume. If you cannot listen to the earbuds this loud for very long, neither of them have in-ear detect. And I pretty much recommend them all for about the same things. They're great for music. They're going to block out a lot of sound passively. They're going to be good for the gym. I don't think they're perfect for the gym because they don't have wingtips. They don't have ear hooks. You're going to have to fiddle with them a little bit to make them great for running because they are going to do a little bit of echoing in your ears. They're not really that kind of a bud. These are a sound quality bud, in my opinion. If you're keeping score, that's at least 6 areas that the H1 bests the TruEngine 3 SE. And we haven't even talked about sound quality yet. The H1 features dual drivers. One is an 8.6 millimeter dynamic driver, and the second is a Knowles balanced armature driver. That's going to deal with your high frequencies and give you a tremendous amount of clarity in your treble. The 3E, on the other hand, has dual 6mm drivers, which you can kind of see as you look through there. Now I'm going to compare these in 3 categories. Bass, where the H1 delivers bigger, deeper bass, and it can handle it because it has larger 8.6mm drivers. The mids, now the H1 is a little bit more laid back in the mids than the TruEngine 3 SE, and on the treble side, the H1, I would say it remains just more in balance with its mid, but it extends the upper range higher and gives you a little bit more clarity than you get in the 3 SE. And I'm going to reiterate from my earlier review, the H1 reproduces clear and precise treble that doesn't extend excessively and penetrate your ears. And that means to me that it's never overboosted or piercing. It just produces more clarity on a higher frequency of sounds. And it's probably not noticeable in most songs, but on a song like AC/DC's It's a Long Way to the Top, if you want to rock and roll, where the highs get pretty high, I think you could notice the difference in a song like that. Now, here's a low-tech visual that I put together to kind of illustrate the point, with the 3 SE being this red line, and the H1, this is a very crude, I drew it myself, and there's no... I know a 6-year-old could have drawn this, right? Sub bass is down here, bass, mids, and highs. So this is a really crude, I'm not even sure if it's accurate, but this is just my interpretation of what you're going to hear, where the H1 just delivers more, a little bit more sub bass, a little bit more bass. They're both, I would say, good, solid bass buds. They're not up here where, up here you'd see probably like the Apollo Bolds or maybe even like a Tozo T12. They just deliver more bass. I think this is a good amount of bass, but it's not going to blow you away. You're not going to want to turn that bass down. You're going to enjoy it. And then what happens in the mids is the TruEngine 3 SE just kind of boosts the mids more than the H1s. The H1s, everything feels a little bit more laid back in the mids. And then the SE3s pull vocals and the high frequencies a lot more forward, in my opinion. And then it just kind of tails off, where the H1 just extends out a little bit further and catches a little bit more high frequencies and tails off later in the high frequency spectrum. Okay, so what's my opinion? Look, Either of these is a great sounding bud, especially the H1 at pretty much any volume level, although I'm not recommending that you listen to these louder than, what is safe for ears. But which would I recommend? I mean, first, I gotta say, you gotta know what's important to you. What's important to me, personally, if I was choosing between these two, is the features on the H1 more than make them the right choice for me, especially that gamer mode. And I really like the wireless charging as well, but that gamer mode means a lot to me. That latency is awesome for gaming. Would either of these be my first choice for working out or making phone calls? No. It just wouldn't be there. I think there are other buds on the market at a lower price point that I would use for working out. A few come to mind. I've definitely run videos on a few of the others that just stay in your ears better, either with wingtips or ear hooks. But these are great audio quality and feature buds at a decent price point. But if the features don't really matter to you, the question you have to ask yourself, and I can't answer it for you, is the extra bass and the extra extension of trebles on the high end and the extra clarity of the H1's worth the money and the weight over the three SEs? And look, man, I've got to tell you, I think the only way you can answer this question for yourself is to ask yourself, would it matter to you if you were not doing an A-B comparison of a pair of earbuds, you start listening to either of these pairs of earbuds for 5 minutes, your ears are going to adapt, you're going to have basically a break-in period for your ears, and the sound of these earbuds is going to start to sound great to you. So the only way that you can answer that question is, are you the kind of person that's going to listen to an earbud for a little while and say, man, I would like something better? Because I'm telling you right now, either of these sound really, really, really good. And it's all about you and what you are looking for your personal preference on which you should choose. But I've run down the major differences, so hopefully that helps you make a good decision. So Zen out.